Hi there. This week you'll be doing your first exam, and so I wanted to give you a little oral instructions on how the exams work and how to prepare for them so you can do your best. Uh, so there will be six exams over the semester, and each one covering usually 2 to 3 or 4 weeks of material. And the exams, as they come along, will always be in two parts: a multiple choice section and an essay section. And each section will be timed individually on the computer. So and it depends how many questions are on the multiple choice, but you'll usually have a little over a minute per question. So if there's 35 questions, say, the exam will be about 45 minutes long or so, a little more than a minute. Uh, so once you start the exam, you should be aware that a timer begins and you cannot pause that. So make sure you have uninterrupted time, a good internet connection. Otherwise, you're going to run into some problems. So turn off the cell phones, uh, get your kids to bed, whatever it is that you need to create a quiet, good space for you to do your work. Uh, the multiple choice exams. How do you prepare for that portion? The first thing is read the lectures. I would sort of say 90% of the material is all in those lectures, the PDFs that are on the course site. So you really need to study those like your textbook. I know they're not always as polished as possible, but the material is there, and I would suggest. It depends on your learning style, but I think for most people, printing them out and be able to have a pen in hand and underlying terms and concepts will really help you master that material. And again, I think the process is, looking at the slide on the top and going back to the material underneath that explains it, and kind of looking both and through both those and seeing how the material connects. If you print them out, the other advantage is you can have them right beside you as you're doing the exam. And if you sort of see a question and it asks about Tocqueville, and go, "Oh, I know that's in the first exam, but I can't quite remember what he said," it's very easy for you to look through the lecture and find that information. If you're trying to go back online and search through it, it's just going to be a lot more cumbersome. But some of you, if you really understand the material and you really have studied it and read it online, that may not be necessary. So that's just a suggestion if you find these tough. Uh, the material, the supplemental readings, I don't pull stuff, from the corners of those to try to trick you. Those supplemental readings, unless there's a specific term in it that's on the week sheet or an assignment that's been tied to it, or I've sort of said you really need to know this. Generally, the supplemental readings are really to reinforce what's in the lecture. And so if there's a concept you don't quite get checks and balances, you can go to the supplemental reading each week, and there'll be information on those big concepts, or what are the Articles of Confederation, how they differ from the Constitution, whatever the topic is. So use those as supplemental. You can also always use those supplemental readings to help kind of richen your knowledge base for writing the essay portion. I'll talk more about the essay in a minute. Uh, Work steadily through the multiple choice questions. The idea of having the time is the idea is that what I don't want you to do is just do sort of a scavenger hunt where you're just sort of searching out answers. I want you to know the material ahead of time. It's like when you're doing the exam, you're really just reading the question, answering what you know. You do have a little time that if there's just something on the tip of your tongue, aren't sure, you can go back to the lectures and take a look at it. But you're not going to have enough time to go search through every answer if you really haven't read the lectures and you really don't kind of know what you're looking for and kind of already basically know what the question is about. So the time limit is to encourage you to really prepare like an in-class exam, to sort of sit down and really know that material. And then, so read a question, think about it, don't read it too quickly, but also don't just sit there and look at the air for the answer to come, because you'll run out of time at the end. One feature on the online exams is that if you uh, do an answer, you can check the results on that, and you can have a second chance to answer a multiple choice question. In that case, you only will get half credit. But that's better than nothing. So it's worth doing. But also that process takes a little time. So you do have to balance things out. So read the question, give it your best shot. If you doesn't come up good, you can get partial credit, and that will sort of keep your score from dropping as much as it might otherwise. Obviously, you want to get it right on your first test. I hope that's not coming up. Um, the essay portion, let me say a word about that. The weak sheets will help you prepare for the exam. In terms of the multiple choice, there's a list of terms. So do make sure you're familiar with those terms. And don't just think, a Webster Dictionary definition is going to help you answer the multiple choice question. If it asks what a liberal is or what checks and balances are, you need to know what it says in the lecture about those. So don't just be able to define those terms, but also know the significance. What is the meaning of that term in the context of this class, and how it fits in with the week's material. Same thing now for the lecture, you can go to the week sheets. The question you will get, for the essay portion of the exam, the question you get will be taken from a pool of questions that you'll find on the week sheets. On each week sheet at the bottom, there's a list of 3 or 4 analytical questions. One of those questions from the previous 2 or 3 weeks, whatever the exam tells you, will appear on the exam, and that's the question you must answer. So in other words, you need to be prepared to answer any and all of the questions on the week sheets preceding the exam. You'll have about 50 minutes to write one essay on one of those questions. So you need to be prepared for that. Again, reading the material in the lecture will be your primary source. You may bring in other sources, but as always in academia, if it's coming from the lecture, I know where it's coming from, or if it's coming from one of the texts I gave you, I know where it's coming from. If you're bringing in outside sources, you should list those. You don't need to do that for these exams. I'm really trying to test you on the material that I've provided you. And on the essay, your ability to sort of bring back and see the big picture. In 50 minutes, I'm hoping you'll be able to write about 500 to 600 words, ideally. If you're writing less, you may do a great answer and you may get full credit, or you can at least get partial credit. So again, tell me what you know, what you can. Try to be as thorough. I'm not grading you. I know these aren't going to be polished pieces, so I'm not grading small grammar and small things of organization. But I do need them to be clear so I can make sense of them. A nice topic sentence leading into it. I don't have to have a thesis paragraph. If it's a question that has clearly 2 parts, you might divide it into 2 paragraphs, something like that. A concluding sentence would be nice to kind of round it off, paint that big picture. I think, again, so you don't freeze when the question comes up. If you take some basic notes on every question, then your 50 minutes should be plenty of time to answer it. So maybe just to get you started, even having a first sentence for each question, that would kind of highlight the structure of your essay. There are 3 reasons I want blah 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 happen, and you can list those, and then you can go on and really be on your way and know what you're going to be saying. Kind of some of the key facts, key names, key words that you want to use in your essay. Having those written down ahead of time will really help you. And if you do that process of preparing for those essays, that's also going to reinforce the material that's on the multiple choice questions. So I think preparing for the essays will also help you prepare for the multiple choice. And the final thing is, as you're reading, the lectures, think of the big picture. I think one thing that students make it difficult is they begin to sort of learn facts individually. The Constitutional Convention, the 3/5 Compromise, the populism, whatever the terms are. When you come to each lecture, try to see how the slides go from one to another. What is the concept within each slide? Why is this material put together on one slide? How does it lead to the next one? And if you start seeing that kind of more big picture thing, the facts start having some context, so it'll be easier to remember, and also help you sort of bring the ideas together for the essays. So prepare well. They're not easy, but at the same time, it's not a big midterm. It's 6 of them, so if you don't do as well on the first one or any one along the way, you have other chances to bring up your average, and it's really only one part of your grade, a significant one, but So it's not something you want to just sort of do off the cuff. But the other time, I think trying to relax, enjoy it, um, and hopefully it'll be a good learning experience. So good luck this week, and if things really go haywire for you, you don't know why or what you should be doing different, always feel free to send me an email. So good luck, and talk to you later.